It's a real family reunion. This is Tevis and Matthew. Hi, Bob. I'm still unemployed. I'm applying to IBM next week. They're hiring again, even though they're forcing early retirement. You got me. Shield me, baby. Oh, shield me. Want any of those nasty, fat-filled Doritos? Here's a peach. Oh, a healthy peach.
I did bring pretzels, Jenny. For those
Pretzels, thank you.
Those of us who don't eat Doritos can have pretzels.
I just didn't want to eat Doritos on tape.
You bad boy.
Oh my God!
Who's at this point?
Sauce with
Well, wait.
All right, David Lynch, are you ready to sit down? Oh my God!
Who is this here then?
That's mine.
I'll get
I
it.
feel like I'm on a crab salad dressing commercial. Hi, Mom. Hey there. What'd you eat?
This has meant so much to all of us over the years, and I just wondered if you would share some of your early recollections of how this place came into being.
Well, when Roy came back from the wars, we wanted to find a place on the lake. So it's beautiful scenery out here. So we drove around every Sunday afternoon with you and Joanne in the back of the car, bored to pieces, doing quite a lot of squabbling, while we went up and down these inlets to see if we could find a place. Finally, we found this. We walked up on the land, and we saw Draper's Mountain in the distance, and we saw these nice inlets. And then I said, "This is the place, Roy. Let's do it here."
Yes.
And I had $1,500. I had $1,500, $1,500 in the bank that wasn't doing much good, and I knew that somehow or other we could build on this spot. So I said, "Now I want to get just the right view." So Roy got a ladder, a step ladder, and brought it out here. And I walked around and I said, "Roy, this is the perfect view." No, I wanted a little bit farther back. So he would move the ladder and I would climb up the ladder. And he would be holding it so we wouldn't fall, I wouldn't fall down the hill until I got just the right view. And I said, "This is it." And he stuck a stick in the ground. And that was how we placed this cabin, the first one. And I said, "What can we do with this money?" We'd already leased the land from Appalachian. They wouldn't sell it. But we leased the land for $25 a year.
How much land was that?
10 acres. 10 acres. Well, then when we went ahead and built on leased land just in faith. We had this dream, you start with a dream.
Start with the dream.
Start with the dream, and I just had this idea that this is the land that I wanted. And I had that money in the bank, and I just needed to do this. I felt so called to build a cabin. And Otto Dell was working for Roy as a rough carpenter at the plant at American Pigment. And he told him that Roy told Art that he wanted him to frame up a cabin for us. I wanted a kitchen where I could see the view, because I knew I'd spend a lot of time in the kitchen. And we just had one kitchen and one bedroom and a loft. Roy did a lot of the carpentry himself.
And you all dug the foundation, as I remember, didn't you?
We didn't have any foundation. We just had it up on stilts with a porch. Those were the early days, and we just had such a good time. We had a Johnny house up on the hill, and Roy was so crazy about blowing dynamite,
Yes.
We had all these rocks, and Mr. Turpin was across the way where the Baptist camp is, and he had a horse over there. He was just an old, rough Appalachian farmer, and he had a cornfield, and he had this horse, and Roy was blowing a hole for the Johnny house up the hill.
I remember hiding behind the trees
Hiding
when the
behind
dynamite went
and,
off.
Yes, and he would say, "Fire in the hole!" And off would blow the rocks just everywhere. And you and Joanne and I were hiding behind the trees, and he was hiding behind the trees. And Mr. Turpin came storming over here, and he said, "You're scaring my animals." And he was furious. He was furious.
Uh-huh.
And so he got back at us, though, because later on when the cabin got built, he shot holes in our windows.
I remember that.
Do you remember those big windows that we had? The factory sash that we got from Pulaski Furniture. They had demolished the building. They had all these, the factory sash out there. So Roy fixed this thing so that we could roll these big windows back and open it up to the attic door. That was a significant part of that first cabin until it burned in 1981 on January the 13th, February the 13th, Friday. It burned to the ground. Somebody broke in and started a fire, and we figured that that was what it was, rather than arson. I never liked to think of that as being arson.
Mom, before we leave the old cabin scenario, tell us about the barber shop. That was always interesting to me, the add-on barber shop.
Yes, Art's Barber Shop.
Different from Art Odell?
That's different from Art Odell. Frank Marshall was the one that moved that in. But here was this old barber shop that was abandoned and for sale down on Main Street. It was called Art's Barber Shop, and that was printed on it. And I inquired how much it was for sale, and they said $75. And I thought, you know, we want to add on another room, and this would be perfect. And so Roy called on Frank Marshall, who had done some hauling for him at the pigment company. And he said, "I think I can do that." So they put it on a trailer and started out here. And we ran into a lot of trees that had limbs hanging down. And Roy got up on top of the barber shop as Frank Marshall pulled it along. I was following, praying in the fort. And he would saw off the limbs as we came to it, the ones that were going to knock the roof off.
Oh, my goodness.
It was quite an adventure.
And you brought it around here in front of the cabin, didn't you?
Brought it around in front of the cabin.
But there's quite a steep slope there.
Oh, it is. And they wanted to turn over into the lake.
Yes.
And so they would make this tread, you know, this little platform. They'd cock it up so it wouldn't fall into the lake. They'd jack it up on the downside. And then we got around here. And I was very pregnant with Jenny. And he said, "Well, honey, you're going to help get this thing into place." So I said, "Me? I can do that." He said, "All you have to do is sit right here on this long timber and just put your feet down on the ground and just move them a little bit, like that. And I'll tell you when to move and when to stop." And he got that thing built up and level just because of his engineering ability. He knew what about leverage and all that. We got that thing into place.
You and Jenny.
Jenny helped me.
Had you cut the door before, or did you do that afterwards?
Cut that
Afterwards.
No, we didn't. We fitted the real opening up against the up against the cabin, and then he cut the hole in the cabin.
I see.
He cut the hole in the head. There we had another bedroom.
For $75.
$75. Well, of course, we gave a little tip to Frank Marshall.
When did you first discover those birds up there in the basket?
Well, Jenny was the one that discovered them. When she called me in Richmond on the telephone and said that she was up here, I said, "Well, honey, please water those baskets that are hanging there. They're so dry and they need water." she came back to the phone in a little while and she said, Mother, there's a nest in there. I can't water the flowers. There's sweet little eggs in there. And I just, too bad about your flowers. And I said, well, I just hope they're still there when we get there. So that's how we learned about the birds in the nest. And they turned out to be wrens. And we've been up here shooting the guns and BBs, all shooting cans and slingshots, and right there on the deck about 12 feet from those birds. And they have been coming faithfully and feeding worms, and we put the food down on the bar, and I think, what if a worm falls in the food?
I've picked bits of the nest out of the hors d'oeuvres before.
Oh, how you were smart not to tell them. But they have been a delight just to watch those parents coming faithfully every day.
And you can hear
4 or 5
them.
times a day.
Yes. You can hear them each time the mother comes with the worm.
Yes. And Mama, you can hear Mama coming, because she'll just chirp at those birds and they'll say, oh boy, lunch is coming. That has been a real sweet reminder that God's in his heaven and he knows what he's doing.
Absolutely.
I don't know, but he knows,
Yes.
and those birds are getting the message.
Mother, tell me about the meaning of this sign up here, Pax Vobiscum.
Well, you know, I think of this as being a real place of peace. And I just wanted to get somebody to put it here. I think, Bob, did we have it painted here first before we had this sign? On the old cabin, we had something that said Pax Vobiscum.
Yes, it was chiseled out.
Chiseled out. That's right.
It was chiseled.
And Roy chiseled that out for me. And
what is the meaning?
What does it mean?
peace be with you. And do you
It's
remember
Star Wars.
Do you remember Ivanhoe? Was it backwards? Jenny, who wrote Ivanhoe? Do you remember? Anyway, that expression is used in that book, that classic book. Peace be with you. That was their way of greeting each other, just like you'd say good morning. You'd meet somebody on the road and you'd say, Pax Vobiscum.
Oh.
And that would say it all.
And that reminds me of the name of this bank.
Yes. Oh, and Pleasant Bank was Roy's grandmother. Oh, he was devoted to her. He loved his grandmother. And her place was called Pleasant Bank on the Rappahannock River.
I see.
It was a beautiful spot. I went there one time and saw the place. He just adored it. And when we had this place on the river, I said, Roy, what shall we call it? He said, well, how about Pleasant Bank? And so that's what it became. We don't use that word very often. I used to have stationery, though, that had that on it. Pleasant Bank, Newbern, Virginia. So
it does have that feeling to it, doesn't it? So peaceful down in this inlet.
And now that you put the buoys up, no boats can come zooming right by our door.
That's right. It makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah.
A lot more fun. And the Baptist.
Tevis, hit that tin can, buddy. All right, good shot.
Crack. Look at Tevis go. And he's not even using a palm grab.
Grandma, why don't you bang that thing? Tavis,
I don't know whether I've got
why
the
don't you
range
cock that
now.
for Grandma?
Okay,
Cock it on. Is it loaded? Yep, good. Thank you.
stand behind you.
All right.
All right.
Well, Mom, I wanted to straighten up the cabin, but then I realized it wouldn't be typical if we didn't have a lot of games and reading material around.
Absolutely. Tevis sitting here with his Game Boy.
What usually happens in this room, Mom?
Telephoning.